The grand hall of the celestial court shone like a jewel. It was built from smooth white stone and clear glass that caught the light of the faraway sun. People from every human colony had gathered there. They wore fine clothes with bright colors and polished metal pins that showed where they came from. Servants walked quietly, carrying silver trays. Guards stood tall at every door. The air held a soft hum from the great machines that kept the hall's light steady and the air perfect. Among the crowd was a young man named Ethan Cole. He was tall, calm, and carried himself with quiet pride. He came from Earth, the homeworld that many now called old and weak. Some of the richer colonies looked down on people from Earth, calling them simple or behind the times. Ethan knew that. He had heard it his whole life. But he also knew something else. People from Earth were strong in ways others had forgotten. They had learned courage, patience, and how to stand tall, even when no one respected them. Ethan had come with a small team. They had come to speak before the royal families that ruled the great colonies. His mission was clear. He wanted all the human colonies to work together, to share ships, ideas, and strength. He believed that if they stood as one, humanity could guard its future against the darkness between the stars. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform, sat Queen Leora. She was the ruler of one of the greatest human settlements in the outer worlds. Her dark hair was set with thin silver threads, and her calm face seemed to hold both wisdom and distance. Next to her stood her son, Prince Rael. He was no older than 19, but already carried a cold pride that made others tense when he entered a room. As the meeting began, the Queen's advisors read reports and shared plans. Each colony spoke of trade, routes, and taxes. Then came the moment for Ethan to speak. He stepped forward to the center of the hall, looking around at the long tables where royals sat in shining robes. His heart beat fast, but his voice was steady. "Your Majesty," he said respectfully, "and honored friends. I come from Earth, the root of humanity. We are not the most powerful, nor the richest, but our people have spirit. We have endured wars, hunger, storms, and failure, and through it all we built again. I ask you not for gifts or pity, but for unity. If we join our fleets, share our plans, and defend each other, no enemy could ever divide us again." His words were simple and clean, made for truth instead of beauty. Some of the royals nodded. Others listened with still faces. Queen Leora studied him carefully, her hand resting under her chin. She did not speak yet, but her eyes showed thought. Then, when the hall began to whisper quietly, the young prince rose from his seat. Rael smiled a cold smile, one of amusement more than kindness. "Unity," he said in a smooth voice that carried across the hall. "You speak of joining our fleets, yet your own ships are nothing but metal ghosts from the past. God. You say Earth endured. You say it survived because no one cared enough to take it. You are asking the strong to depend on the weak. It is charming, truly, but it is also foolish." The room went still. For a long second, no one moved. The sound of the machines above seemed louder. Ethan's eyes met the prince's. Behind calm gray eyes, a fire began to burn. But he did not raise his voice, and he did not step closer. The queen turned her gaze to her son, but she said nothing yet. Ethan took a slow breath. A hurt ran deep, but he did not show it. He bowed once toward the queen, not toward her son, and then slowly turned around. The sound of his steps was soft against the shining floor. No one stopped him. No one knew what to say. He left the hall without a single word. Whispers rose like wind through trees once he was gone. Some said the boy from Earth had been too proud. Others said the prince had gone too far. The queen sat in silence, thinking not only of her son's sharp tongue, but also of the quiet strength in the man who had chosen silence over anger. Outside, under the wide glass sky, Ethan walked to the edge of the grand stairs. He looked at the bright towers and the shining ships that filled the sky. He felt the sting of insult, but also something else's determination. He knew words could not prove worth. Only deeds could. As he left the capital that evening, the stars seemed to burn a little brighter, as if waiting for him to show what true human pride meant. Ethan said nothing, but in his heart, a single promise echoed. He would return not with words, but with results that even a proud prince could never ignore. Ethan Cole did not look back as he left the grand hall. The heavy doors closed behind him with a deep sound that echoed down the long marble corridor. The cool air outside the palace felt sharp against his skin, but it cleared his thoughts. He walked slowly down the shining stairs until he reached the lower courtyard, where his small team waited with their transport ship. His friend Mia Grant ran up to him. She was short and quick, with bright brown eyes that always seemed full of ideas. "Ethan," she said, her voice low but tense. "What happened? We saw the broadcasting lights go off too early. Did something go wrong in there?" Ethan gave a small nod but said nothing at first. He looked at the ground for a moment before answering. "It is over." The prince had no interest in reason. "He insulted us in front of all the royals." The queen said nothing, and I walked out. There was no point in staying. Mia frowned and crossed her arms. "So they think Earth is weak again," she said softly. "It will never change their minds." Ethan looked up at the faraway palace tower that rose into the golden sky. "Then we must show them what Earth truly is," he said. "Not through words, but through work." They boarded their ship, a small gray vessel named Resolute. It was not fancy, but every part of it had been built by human hands that believed in purpose. The engines rumbled gently as they lifted into the air, heading away from the capital city toward the quiet black of space. Back aboard the Resolute, the team gathered around the main table in the command room. Screens flickered with data. Graphs showed the trade routes that the colonies used. Ethan stood at the center of the room, looking calm even though his mind raced. "We will change our plan," he said. "We'll not ask for unity anymore. We'll act. Earth's fate can rest in the hands of proud nobles who think respect must be won with gold. It must be earned with courage." Mia leaned forward. "What will we do first?" Ethan turned to face the large front window, where the stars stretched like endless roads. "We will go to the mining colonies in the outer ring. There are people there who need help. They lack supplies and defense systems. We will work with them, fix their problems, and build our own alliance, one that is chosen by trust, not titles." The team agreed with quiet determination. They knew the weeks ahead would be hard, but something in Ethan's calm confidence reminded them why they followed him. As the Resolute left the royal world behind, communication networks buzzed far below. News of the insult had already begun to spread. Some found the story amusing. Others whispered that the young man from Earth had broken every rule of courtesy by walking out in silence. But a few saw it differently. They said it took courage to walk away when pride demanded a fight. Back in the palace, the queen sat alone in her chamber. Her son entered quietly. The moment she looked at him, she knew his arrogance was fading. "Mother," Prince Rael said, his voice lower than usual. "Did I embarrass you?" The queen turned her eyes toward him, but did not answer right away. She folded her hands and stared at the glowing city beyond the window. "You embarrassed yourself, Rael? You spoke as if worth is determined by power alone." Rael frowned, said nothing. He just turned and left. And that silence cut deeper than words ever could. The prince looked away, unsure what to say. Inside him, unease began to settle, where pride once sat. Meanwhile, days turned to weeks. The Resolute traveled through the cold, dark regions of space. At every stop, the crew found small human settlements struggling to survive farms on dusty moons. Miners digging deep into metal-rich asteroids, engineers working in thin air under weak suns. Ethan and his team repaired machines, offered help, and built trust. The people saw that humans from Earth were not weak, but loyal and skilled. Each success was small, but it meant something. Rumors of the Resolute spread back toward the core worlds. People began to speak of Ethan Cole, the quiet envoy who had left the royal court and gone into the wilds to build something new from nothing. One night, as the ship floated near a quiet moon, Mia stood beside Ethan on the viewing deck. The stars stretched before them like scattered fire. "Do you ever think about that day in the hall?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at the stars without turning his head. "Yes," he said, "but I do not feel anger anymore. The insult is nothing now. What matters is what we do next. One day, they will see. Silence is not weakness. It is strength waiting for the right time to speak." Mia smiled faintly. Then let's make sure that time comes soon. And with that, the Resolute turned toward another distant world, its engines burning bright against the dark, carrying with it the quiet promise that Earth's voice would one day be heard again. The ship Resolute moved through the quiet dark of space. Its engines hummed softly, and its lights glowed like small stars against the black sky. Inside, life had fallen into a steady rhythm. Days passed without anyone noticing the hours. The crew worked, repaired, trained, and planned. They had left behind the world of kings and queens and entered the world of real people. Ethan Cole spent most of his time in the command room, studying reports from the outer colonies. These reports came from workers and settlers who lived on lonely rocks far from the main trade routes. Life there was hard. Supplies were rare. Pirates sometimes attacked ships carrying food and medicine. The leaders of the bigger colonies never sent help, saying it was not worth the cost. Ethan had a different view. If we help them, he told his crew, they will remember who stood by them. When the time comes, they will stand with us. Respect grows from action, not words. His words carried quiet strength. The crew of the Resolute trusted him, called him captain, even though his rank had been only envoy lieutenant when they left Earth. He did not correct them. He simply led. Mia Grant often worked beside him. She was good with machines and systems. She fixed broken engines and guided the ship through risky orbits near asteroids. At times, she teased Ethan lightly when he stayed silent for too long, saying you need to talk sometimes or people will think you are a machine. But she liked his calm nature. It made her feel safe, even when things went wrong. Their first mission after leaving the royal court took them to a mining station called Port Haven. The miners there had lost contact with nearby settlements after a power storm damaged their communication grid. In the cold silence of the mining tunnels, Ethan and his crew repaired broken wires, rebuilt power lines, and shared the last of their food rations with the tired workers. The miners watched in surprise. It heard stories that Earthmen were poor and slow. Yet here was a young man from Earth working beside them in the dust, lifting heavy tools and sleeping on metal floors without complaint. Within days, Port Haven was lighted again, and the communication towers flickered back to life. When Ethan and his crew left, the miners stood on the platform and raised their helmets high. One old worker shouted, "Earth boys know how to work, that's for sure." The phrase spread faster than light across the local networks. Soon, people in nearby colonies began to talk about the ship. Resolute and its crew who asked for nothing, but left every place better than they found it. Back in the core worlds, the royal court began to hear the same talk. Reports arrived on the queen's desk. She read them in silence. The advisor standing beside her said carefully, "Your Majesty, the boy from Earth is becoming a symbol. People say he is building a network of loyal colonies. Perhaps we should." The queen stopped him with a gentle motion of her hand. "We will watch for now," she said. "Sometimes silence builds more power than speeches. My son should learn that." Prince Rael did not enjoy hearing Ethan's name whispered in court. He told himself it was just gossip, yet every new report made him restless, the queen noticed. One night as stars gleamed outside her chamber window, she said quietly, "Rael, pride can blind you. That young man is doing what you would not. He is earning the hearts of people without demanding their fear." Rael said nothing, but his fingers tightened on the arm of his chair. Far from the palace, the Resolute continued its quiet mission. Wherever they went, they left repairs, new hope, and plans for defense systems. They built stronger shields for small colonies using old ship parts. They taught local guards how to coordinate patrols. Each task seemed small, but together they formed a growing network of trust. One night, as the crew shared a small meal in the galley, Mia turned to Ethan. "You know," she said with a light smile, "the royals may laugh at us, but the people out here, they remember every bolt we tighten and every home light we bring back." Ethan looked at her with tired but kind eyes. "Let them laugh. Laughter cannot break a man's purpose. When trouble comes, those who laughed will look for help, and we will be ready." His words stayed with them, echoing quietly in their hearts. Weeks later, small ships from different colonies began to call themselves part of the Earth's alliance. They were not soldiers, just workers and traders, but they shared one rule: help each other as humans. Soon, the name Ethan Cole became known across the outer systems as a symbol of quiet strength. He never sought fame. He only worked harder, And though he did not yet know it, his actions were about to change not only his own life, but also the future of every human colony that had once forgotten the meaning of unity. The ship Resolute glided through quiet space, carrying its small crew toward another distant colony. The long weeks of travel had changed everyone aboard. They were no longer seen as a small forgotten team from Earth, but as a symbol of unity that grew stronger each day. Ethan Cole often stood near the front window of the ship and watched the stars drift by. He had learned to read them like roads in the sky. He thought of Earth often, of the wide blue oceans and green hills he had left behind. He thought of the people who worked hard every day, unseen by the royals, yet who gave meaning to humanity's name. The colonies they had helped were now sending messages of thanks and offers of help. Small ships patrolled together. Resources were shared. It was becoming what Ethan had dreamed of, a network built, not by titles or bloodlines, but by trust and human will. One evening, Mia joined him at the window, carrying a small mug of tea. She handed it to him without a word. The stars shone faintly on her face. "We've built something real, Ethan," she said at last. "Not big, but strong. People are beginning to believe again." Ethan nodded slowly. "Belief is the start of everything, but it won't last unless we can protect what we've built." The colonies are growing, and with growth comes risk. They both knew what he meant. Reports were spreading about groups of raiders who had begun to attack trading ships between the outer colonies. These raiders moved fast and left nothing behind. Some believed they were old soldiers from forgotten wars. Others said they were paid by people who feared Earth's new alliance. One morning, while the crew repaired a navigation beacon near a small moon, a warning message cut through the communication system. The words came broken, but clear enough to understand. "This is Colony Riverfall. We are under attack, requesting any help available." Repeat, "We are under attack." Ethan's calm never wavered. "Set course for Riverfall," he ordered. "We move now." The Resolute turned sharply, its engines glowing bright. The crew rushed to their stations. Tools rattled, systems buzzed, and the hum of energy rolled through every deck. They reached Riverfall hours later. Smoke and fire filled the colony sky. Ships circled above like dark birds, firing on small defense towers. Mia looked at the screens in shock. "There are 10 enemy ships. We're outnumbered." Ethan's voice was steady. "Maybe, but we have something they don't: discipline and unity." He studied the pattern of the enemy movements for a moment and then gave quick instructions. "Power to forward shields. Set engines for short jumps between gravity points. Move fast, hit hard, and stay unpredictable." The crew followed his commands without question. The Resolute darted through the sky using its small size as a weapon. It flashed in and out of view, striking quick bursts at the enemy ship's engines and communication towers. The raiders were larger and louder, but they had no plan. The Resolute moved like a shadow that could not be caught. During the fight, Mia handled the main gun controls while sweat rolled down her face. "Target locked," she said. Ethan gave one clear command: "Fire." The beam of light cut through space and struck the lead raider's engine. Ship burst into fire and drifted apart silently. The other raiders began to panic. They tried to regroup, but the combined forces of the colony's small defense towers and the sharp maneuvers of the Resolute broke their formation. Within minutes, the battle was over. The remaining raiders fled into the darkness, leaving behind their dead engines and broken pride. When the dust cleared, the people of Riverfall cheered. The name Ethan Cole spread faster than ever. They called him the Silent Captain, the man who turned insult into strength. The colony sent messages of thanks and offers to join his growing alliance. Far away in the royal palace, the Queen stood before a wide screen showing reports from Riverfall. She read each word in silence while her son Rael watched beside her. "So," the Queen said softly, "he saved the colony that none of us cared enough to protect." Rael lowered his eyes. He wanted to answer but found no words. The Queen turned toward him. "Do you see now, my son? Honor's not born from wealth or title. It grows from deeds." Rael nodded slightly. Shame and admiration mixed in his heart. "I see it now," he said quietly. In the following days, the Resolute and its new allies rebuilt Riverfall. Houses were repaired, new watchtowers were set up, and people walked with pride again. Ethan and his crew worked until their hands ached. At night, when everything was still, Ethan stood outside under the stars. He remembered the hall of the royal court the moment he turned away without speaking. Now he knew it had been the beginning of something greater than anger or pride. It had been the start of a movement that would show all humans what it meant to stand together. He looked at the horizon, where the sun of Riverfall began to rise. "Silence can hold more power than any speech," he whispered, "and one act of courage can awaken the whole world." As the new day spread across the sky, the ship Resolute shone in the soft light, ready to carry them toward their next mission, their next hope, their next chance to prove that Earth, once forgotten, had risen again among the stars. The days after the Battle of Riverfall passed with quick rhythm. The sky above the colony had turned clean again. The air smelled of new metal from the towers being rebuilt and of smoke still rising from the burned fields. The people worked fast and with hope. They no longer looked lost or afraid. They now had a story to tell, a story of the ship Resolute that came when no one else did. Ethan Cole helped wherever he could, patched up damaged machines, spoke with the families who had lost their homes, and gave time to listen to each worker who came near him. He did not act like a commander or a leader from high above. He spoke as one of them. His voice was quiet and kind, but it carried power. People began to say that when Ethan said something, you wanted to believe it because he never wasted words. Mia often watched him when he worked. There was something in his calmness that reminded her of home, of the steady way her father used to fix old ships back on Earth. One evening she walked up to him while the sun of Riverfall set low, behind the metal towers. "You know," she said softly, "they talk about you now like you are some kind of legend." Ethan smiled faintly. "Legends belong to the past," he said. "We are building the future. But your name," Mia continued, "is already moving through all the colonies. Even the royal capital has heard of what we did here." Ethan looked at the sky for a long time. "Then let them hear," he said. "Let them see what unity looks like." Back in the capital, Queen Leora received daily updates from her network. She read about Riverfall, about the rebuilding, and about the trade routes that now carried the mark of the Earth Alliance. More and more outer colonies were joining Ethan's circle. They sent food, parts, and volunteers to support his crew. She knew that something had changed in humanity. It was not power as the royals defined it. It was something deeper respect born through action. Her son Rael came into the council room one night, restless again. He looked older now. Pride no longer sat in his eyes, but something like regret. "Mother," he said quietly, "I want to go to him. I want to see what he has built." The queen studied him for a moment. Then she nodded. "Go, but do not go as a prince. Go as a man who wishes to learn." A few weeks later, a royal shuttle descended onto Riverfall. The colony workers stopped what they were doing and pointed at the sky. Ethan watched the ship land with quiet curiosity. He did not expect any royal visit. When the ramp opened, Prince Rael stepped out alone. His royal clothes were simple this time, without the glittering stones and heavy metal pins. He looked around until his eyes found Ethan among the crowd. For a long moment, neither spoke. The last time they had seen each other had been in the Great Hall, where pride had ruled the day. But now, they stood on a dusty field that smelled of ash and new wiring, the air still warm from hard work. Adwale walked forward slowly. When he reached Ethan, he stopped and looked him in the eye. "I came here to see what you have done," he said quietly. "And I see it now. You built something no crown could ever command." Ethan did not answer right away. He studied the young man's face and saw honesty in it. "We only repaired what others forgot," he said. "But if you see value in that, then maybe change has already begun." Rael took a deep breath. "I came here also to apologize," he said. "For the words I spoke, for the way I judged you. I thought silence meant weakness. I was wrong. I have seen your silence turn into strength." The people standing nearby heard his words and watched with astonishment. A prince, humbling himself before a man from Earth, was something no one had imagined could happen. Ethan gave a small nod and reached out his hand. The prince took it firmly. For the first time, there was no wall between them, no title, no pride. Just two men of the same kind. That moment was seen by the workers, the mechanics, and the crew of the Resolute. The image spread across the network. It became a symbol of a new beginning. Soon after, Queen Leora herself announced a joint council that would unite the Earth Alliance and the royal colonies. Weeks later, in that same grand hall where Ethan had once been insulted, he now stood again, but this time beside the Queen and her son. The crowd was different. There was respect in the air now, not arrogance. The Queen spoke first, her voice clear. "There was once a day when this hall witnessed pride and insult," she said, "but today it witnesses humility and unity. Let this remind us all that respect is earned, not given by birth." When she finished, she turned to Ethan. He stepped forward, looked at the people, and spoke with calm strength. "Humanity's one. We come from different worlds, but we share the same sky. Unity is not a dream, it is a duty." His voice filled the hall without needing to rise in volume. Every person listened. When he finished, a soft peace settled over the room. Outside, the sky glowed with the light of ships carrying goods and hope between worlds. That night, as the stars rose above the palace towers, Ethan stood on a balcony beside Mia. The breeze was gentle, carrying the faint hum of distant engines. She looked at him and said, "You see, you did not just walk away that day. You walked toward this." Ethan smiled slightly. "Sometimes a quiet step forward changes more than 1,000 loud speeches," he said. And as the night spread across the universe, the legacy of one man's silence turned into a story that would travel forever among the stars. Story not of anger, but of dignity, courage, and unity that no insult could ever break.